Welcome to the February 3rd Jail and Zones production user call. We have Philip, Katya, Jan, Antranig, and myself, Michael, so far. And Philip pointed out the Nixbook commutable system for upcycling PCs. What do you have in mind for that?
Well, just the idea that there could be a no maintenance sort of a system that could go for upcycling PCs. This person in Washington State has given away 1,500 or so notebook computers that have been upcycled from area businesses. And using the NixOS that sets an immutable system, FreeBSD has all the components that would really need to do that with some work. Not that it would be simple, but that it would be a possibility to see if FreeBSD based system would be able to be an alternative OS so that there's some diversity in the ecosystem of upcycling PCs.
The
Let's watch
prob-
this topic. Jan, go ahead.
the problem I see with this is that especially the cheaper systems often have crappy chips, at least partially, and it takes only one stupid chip to kind of stop such a project in its tracks. Be that is very uncommon but cheap network chip or Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or whatever. And yeah, Bluetooth on FreeBSD is a sad story of its own. Um, so yeah,
That is
Yeah,
if
and
they're
precisely what
really
we brought
old,
up before you joined. Go ahead.
yeah.
yeah, and
So
that's what he said. He just harvests
the
those for
other,
parts if it doesn't work.
yeah, the other part is that you can get a immutable system with FreeBSD, but it's not really content addressed the way NixOS handles it, with basically you pinning down the hashes of each package and so on in your config. Which doesn't have to be a massive downside because of the relatively monolithic structure of FreeBSD, where your base system has a single version number, or at least a single commit, and then you install packages which also have hashes. So you could do some of it, and the version numbers are supposed to always increase. You're not supposed to have different packages with same version numbers. So technically, you should get away with just pinning version numbers and so on. One of the problems is that the official base packages are not kind of made available per patch level, so you can't easily install an old patch level without building it yourself. Uh, Same problem applies to ports. So yeah, just because you pinned it doesn't mean it's available on the CDN. You can't ex you're not expected to be able to install all ports packages and so on.
Well,
Um,
yeah, the key thing about this is he's putting together like super limited systems. They basically have Chrome and LibreOffice, and that's it.
and the nice thing is, if you take ownership of the whole build infrastructure, then FreeBSD can do it. It's mostly a policy question, not a technology question.
Cool.
Yeah, so I just liked it as an idea for, hey, FreeBSD can do this. And I think it's great that he's putting this together and giving away computers. And there's some technological things that are cool in FreeBSD that, just aren't going to be anywhere else readily available.
The root on
So
ZFS is half the battle. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Jan.
boot environments for updates and so
Yep.
on,
Bingo.
especially once you automate it to the degree that a system update is basically creating or even just receiving a new boot environment and then mounting your data into it.
Exactly.
You could kind of have, yeah, and FreeBSD has some things few people even know exists. For example, that init can change root before doing anything else. So you could even do something crazy with change routing into a place so that you have some process which runs unchanged rooted, but everything else is change rooted. That would be interesting because now you can have a place out of the visible file system namespace, or normal user at least, where you can mount stuff and then others as mount them together. All of that is maybe something you would want to bring to the FreeBSD desktop slash laptop calls.
Well, one question that I had that's relevant to the Jails call is what about the idea of using app jail, that module or something similar to it for each app would just run in its own jail instead of installing it on the main system. Is that a viable way, or is that not really great at this point?
In my opinion, it's a neat idea for real applications, but for something which is basically an operating system of its own, like Chrome, the problem is that you have to allow so much within the jail, and such a large fraction of your total life is going to be in one of the jails, and you're going to share so many of your files with them that you're quickly seeing a point of diminishing returns for a whole lot of complexity.
Well, Chrome is exactly what I was thinking, that since it's so large, that if it just ran as its own app and then updates are pushed out as a new jail for in this sort of a system, would that be a good way to do it instead of needing to do a whole new boot environment? It would just be you want the next version of Chrome, and there it goes.
Um, okay, so you want to have the opportunity to kind of replace the whole user land. In that case, maybe even nested jails would be a good fit, so that you have kind of the user is expected to always
Oh,
interact with the outer jail, and each application is in child jail. And in that case, you would mostly use jails for managing change root environments. Um, yeah, I guess it could be done. I haven't tried it, so I can't tell you how well it will work out and how many just headaches you will create for yourself and your future users. It's a lot of tooling to get right.
so I think it's just an idea in my back pocket related to jails to say, is this going to be something viable? Because it's very different than how I typically use the computer.
Yeah,
The tools are
I
falling into
did.
place, and I very much want these conversations to continue. And I did bring up applications a few weeks ago because, yeah, let's stop talking about them and start delivering them. And yes, let's find that right model, be it with external tools or internal tools. Go ahead.
So one of the challenges I foresee for anyone tackling this is that this is a perfect time sink. You're doing something good for the world, so you can kind of justify sinking untold hours into it without ever making relevant progress. So yeah, it can just be an infinite time sink to try to optimize this. And
That's true. All things open source, if you get them
and
wrong.
this is especially this kind of trying to solve problems you foresee for less fortunate users who are not expected to understand things. It's, in my opinion,
You
your
become
problem just
Ubuntu or the original
no,
Ubuntu?
yeah, something like that.
I
Yeah,
see. Yes. Okay. Well, hey, it's we the technologies we work with should eventually reach users, should they not? So, hey, hats off to whoever's
yes,
pushing this
but
forward.
shouldn't the technology actually reach a user and not just in a locked down, watered down version where we kind of don't trust you to learn how the computer works,
True,
which
but
is
Unix don't
different from not
care.
expecting you,
Ah,
but actively locking it down so that it's not really your computer, it's an appliance you're entrusting your data to.
okay, save it for the immutability call, but yes, all valid points, and I very much want to know how we run applications in jails in the coming year. So, any other final thoughts on that? And delightfully on point from a few weeks ago, I think it was Carlo who pointed out that the wine packages were having some issues and pointing to the wrong old artifacts. However, there was a talk about FreeBSD gaming at FOSDEM. Did anyone present attend that? All you cool kids in Europe or near Europe?
Nope.
No, bummer. Cool. But that's kind of cool. And that was a big event with everyone there, but I might make it to scale. So we shall see. That's kind of our equivalent down here in the colonies. What just happened? Unrecognized words. Oh, thank you, Google. That's really sweet. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a new feature. I just touched it. So, from a recent call, Hazen pointed out that musl libc is choking on Linux compatibility. And I think that shouldn't be too difficult to exercise. So I found some tools on creating an Alpine cheroot and how to just blast down the distribution sets or whatever they call them to just make a directory full of Linux binaries to just try. Are there any Alpinists here who have worked with Alpine and probably have a simpler way to just grab some known image to just splat down on FreeBSD and try with Linux compatibility? Dear listeners, you're welcome to poke at that. Vermaden, as you put it, is discovering package base and has an article on minimal FreeBSD installation. So I hope 1,000 flowers bloom like that. The document is linked here, and yes, I snarfed it from the valuable news or whatever he calls it. And this was interesting using BSD install for automatic deployments. I recently discussed some shortcomings where you can't do auto and jail at the same time, and there's certainly no beehive option, but the plumbing for a correct installation is hiding in BSD install, so I hope we can all make better use of it. This came across like just yesterday about exploring Docker containers on FreeBSD, I believe using Podperson. Okay, Podman. I am being slightly sensitive there. Let's take a look. I know DCH is an advocate for all things OCI. So here we go. This was from the 3rd, and depending on your time zone, that's like right today. So this is fresh. Da, 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 da. Good. They start with the documentation. Very nice. Are there any Podman users here? And Philip, to precisely your point, when creating applications on an immutable cycled desktop, maybe Podman is the solution. And especially if you can have a Docker container that handles software that isn't quite packaged for FreeBSD.
Well, yeah, I just haven't used Podman to know how well that fits.
Right. So I like their layout. I haven't seen a single advertisement yet. And they get into ZFS. And this is, yep, that was what I was thinking for Alpine. Just what's the shortest path to that on a FreeBSD system? And just poke at binaries, just step through them if necessary and try to do a smoke test of what's choking on musl libc. So this is fresh and beautifully presented. Any thoughts? Well, they have their own final thoughts, but do you have any thoughts on that? Lovely. So on a recent call, we discussed the fix of one of the jail escapes, but there was one that went unattended, but perhaps because of policy issues relating to the age out of 13. Jan, have you noticed anything new on that? Any movement on the ticket? Any feedback from Ed and company who we brought it up with?
Frozen. No. Are you back? Okay, you're back.
And Daniel's joined. Hello,
So
Daniel.
to answer the question, my short of a records discussion is, yeah, there is no fix for the second problem for 13 right now. The general policy is kind of assumed that security patches are released for all supported versions at the same time, and it's not expected that one old release branch doesn't get a fix. So this problem is kind of unprecedented. And maybe the admitting reality is the least bad solution and just the lesser evil to release the patch for 14 and mention that there is no fix right now for 13, and 13 has like all of 2 months left in it
Bingo.
also. So yeah, starting to backport features now. I would assume that at most 13 now gets a emergency fix which just allows you to disable file descriptor parsing between jails in general. It
Okay.
would break Kasiba, but I think that's kind of the only application which makes intentional use of this.
Okay.
And it wouldn't break 13 jails running on a 15 or 14 kernel.
Got it. Thank you. Antranig, your intern was doing some cool porting in real time on a recent call. First off, how are they doing? And would something like this article be of use to them?
It got merged.
It got merged.
Yes. To be fair, Uncle Dave committed it.
Very fair. Very fair. So
Yes.
here is an article on porting for those who perhaps were inspired by the recent calls. So yes.
Yeah.
Jan, you have some
And
updates on your Chelsio discoveries, because that is quite promising insofar as you use the SR-IOV features to just hand nicks
I
out like candy
also
to jails and
Well,
VMs. Yes, Jan.
I
Anthony.
also wanted to
um,
share this link, which is the
We-
foundation article from I think 2 or 3 years ago on
Oh, perfect.
contributing to the FreeBSD ports
Okay,
collection. It
I
might be
will
useful
add
for
that to
someone.
the Vermont link.
yeah, so turns out as expected, the hardware supports what I need and it can easily be enabled, but you have to know where to look for the documentation. And the documentation is quite common for a man page. Is written in such a way that it makes total sense once you know what it means. Um, so the network card, I'm using a Chelsio T5. Has an internal hardware switching engine uh, within what they call the ASIC, so basically within the primary chip of the network card. This feature is exactly what's needed to allow different virtual interfaces or pass through virtual functions to communicate among each other and with the host. So this
What's
driver is a
this?
bit unusual in that it doesn't just appear as one network card per Ethernet port on the back of your computer, but each physical function on the NIC, you have one per network port on the back of your machine, can appear as up to 7 network interfaces. The primary network interface is just the first virtual function in hardware. But because FreeBSD expects a one-to-one mapping, you just get that by default, but you can get up to 6 more interfaces. And thus you can configure how many interrupts do you want, how many network queues do you want for different users and so on. And then you can use those. But by default, those aren't bridged to the network card, but go directly out of the SFP plus transceiver onto the network. If you set this loader tunable or change the sysctl while the interface is administratively down, so you do an ifconfig interface name down, then you can change the sysctl. Otherwise, the sysctl change will fail with an ebusy error. And once that's enabled, instead of just writing directly to the output queue, it will use what's called a VM write, so virtual machine write, to go through the bridge. And then it works as I expected and most other drivers function. For example, Intel cards always work in this mode.
Hmm.
There are some use cases I can imagine where you want the default Chelsio settings. For example, if you have an external firewall, you want to be able to inspect the traffic between your jails or other users of the virtual interfaces, then you have to send the traffic out to the network because otherwise it's internal to the host and is invisible to your point of enforcement. Um, yeah,
What's the
for
exact card you have? T something?
uh, T520 SO or CR, I don't remember exactly, but they function the same.
Yep. Cool.
Um, yeah, I didn't see any performance differences when enabling this, but now there's a hardware switch, basically unmanaged switch connecting all the jails, which means they can talk to each other in a way that is invisible to the network switch and anything connected to that, which is what I want.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, so you can either just set one loader tunable to enable this by default, or you can set it per port, so per interface. Yeah, I wrote a secret decoder array.
Yes, thank you. You looked in the right place,
So
and I recall from a recent call you had to look at the code to find the right way to ask the right question to
yeah,
get the answer
I
you
found
wanted.
this. I wonder what is the difference between the card, what it's doing in pass-through mode and what is it doing in the other mode. And then I thought, wait, it reads a loader tunable here to decide what to do. Strange. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, uh, Then I looked it up and then I looked in the manpage and then suddenly it started making sense because, yeah.
Uh, you mentioned on a recent call IPv6 being happy or not so happy. What are the confines for that?
So
Constraints?
stateless auto configuration works on the virtual interfaces, but for some reason does not work on the SR-IOV interfaces. I don't know why. I haven't tried just configuring static IPv6. I assume that will work. Um,
Hmm.
It's probably some problem with the ICMPv6 multicast traffic for the router advertisements not being delivered to the
Cool.
SIOV interfaces. I would have to debug that, but yeah,
Uh, is
because you
there
get
any?
six. Right now, I get six virtual interfaces for use with jails, which work dual stacked, and then the 16 virtual functions only work with IPv4 for me right now. If you're in a proper production network where everything is configured directly with static networking and not with stateless auto configuration, then this shouldn't be a problem.
Is there anything preventing the use of jails and VMs simultaneously on this nifty local unmanaged
No,
switch? Awesome. And the performance is as expected?
no measurable CPU overhead.
Awesome.
So
Or
yeah.
network performance versus, say, a tap device, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah.
so
Awesome.
it's vastly faster than a tap
Yes.
device. And it doesn't run a whole lot of host CPU cycles to do it. So yeah, you can configure your network card, let's say eight non-pass-through and eight pass-through interfaces, and you can have eight virtual machines, and you should be able to create a bridge with ePair for this, or tabs for the less performance critical applications. So
Mm-hmm.
you can handle overflow. It's not that you're hard limited, it's just that you can only offload this many um, jails or
Cool.
beehive guests per network card.
Cool. Any questions for Jan about that? And Philip shared some eye candy from the Bastille folks. So Philip, this is a dashboard, a what? And
Yeah,
we
I
have a
think it's
picture in the dock.
it's a work in progress dashboard. Basically a jail management dashboard. Think of something like TrueNAS or Silva,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like it's for the jails management specifically, or actually whole system management for a lot of pieces on here. So I just know that
Interesting.
this could be a thing to have on the call as a reference point so that folks can see, here is a potential GUI interface for the jail management. Because I know that there's probably some other ones that are being created with the Silva and you know uh, other pieces like we're in the TrueNAS system as well.
Yep. And you use that word standard, so luckily we have a dozen standard ones to choose from, and perhaps we have a
The
13th.
XKCD, there are 14
Yes.
standards. We need one more
To
to rule
unify
them
them
all.
all. Yes. So that's very cool. I wish them well. Hopefully, well, actually, the breaker on so many of these is just the sheer dependencies. I mean, Silva is proudly in Go, and we're not going to have Go in base. So do we know if this is heavily using in-base tools or heavily using external tools?
I don't think they've released the source or talked about the details. I think this was just, hey, this is what we're working on.
Ooh, stealth open
The
source, my favorite.
Bastille itself relies only on the base tools.
Bingo. So hopefully it's some clever use of
Yeah,
Katya.
what I mean is the GUI part. I don't know what the GUI
Sure.
part is
Yeah.
based on.
Cool. Mark, Katya, Daniel, Antoine,
One might
topics?
wonder if a fancy GUI like this can be written only in base tools. That being said, we have NC, we have shell, we have
Yeah.
awk, we have sed, we have Lua
Lua.
nonetheless.
Take it
So
away.
as far as I can tell, how far can you take the best base system to run a pure HTTP server? I mean,
Hmm.
with doing this. Yes, Jan, I know you're not supposed to, but we're doing it because we can. That's not the point. So that
I'm
might be an interesting research to do. On the other hand, on an OpenBSD system, you can actually build this
They have
properly,
the web server,
securely.
eh?
You have the web server, the CGI tools, the C libraries. For security, you even have like things like pledge, for example, to make sure that everything is done properly, etc. So, yeah, I'll think about this.
Who was porting
Uh,
Pledge to FreeBSD recently?
I
That
am.
came, thought you reminded me of that. How's that going?
It's going well, actually. It's
Awesome.
going well. Not sure if in time to be able to present during EuroBSDCon, but we might have a proof of concept by EuroBSDCon.
Cool.
So we're still learning as we go. Actually, that's a good question. Jan, do we have enough tools in the base system to run a web server or a web server?
Well,
I mean,
you could bind a socket via inetd
yes,
and then just write anything which speaks HTTP over the socket, I guess. And so
POSIX
if
shell
you,
or awk
yeah,
or
anything which
Lua.
can read binary stuff. So
Yeah.
Lua could you could use Lua to read and write binary data, right? So you would have to re-implement a whole lot of stuff. At that point, in my opinion, it would be more useful to make it import, depend on stuff imports, and not reinvent the wheel. Maybe enjoy the luxury of picking a language and ecosystem which fits the task instead of constricting yourself to play in a Turing carpet. Yeah, if you want to have something useful, I would recommend against trying to shoehorn it into what we have in base. Either bring something into base or accept that all the jail managers and stuff like that are ports, and there's no reason why it would have to be in base. It's one package install away if you want it.
Hence Standard. So there is the Mako Lua batteries included web environment. Oh gosh. Anyway, cool. Antranig, what else are you hacking on? You've always got some fun coming along.
I'm doing actually some Pascal work the last couple of days. It's mostly porting, not porting ports, well, porting software to FreeBSD ports. So yeah, it's going well. I'm also working with a friend who has been reviving software from the 90s. Remember Window Maker?
Right.
So before the repositories died, he found a lot of software that was written for GNU Step and Window Maker, and none of them were compiling, of course. But he got them to a compiling state and a running state. So I'm porting those to FreeBSD as some kind of a, let's call it archaeology purposes for preservation. Hopefully, I'll also upload the tarballs somewhere on the or multiple places on the internet just in case, so it doesn't happen again. The 90s were fun. Like there's like a Sherman's Aquarium and a Tamagotchi
Oh, goodness.
window maker applet rather, right? FreeBSD ports as an abandonware collection. Yeah, I mean we already have a lot of abandonware in the
Yes,
ports
we
that
do.
Yeah.
other
As
distros
long
don't,
as
which is
it's
nice.
clearly described as similar to CDE.
Yeah,
This is brought back because it's cool, not because
yeah,
you should use it in production. I'm
yeah,
totally happy with it because I like these stupid projects.
yeah, yeah.
It's just important that you tell people, hey, this is unmaintained code which was
From
written to
like
the security
20 plus
practices
years
of 30
ago.
years
Yeah,
ago.
Okay. Save
yeah,
it for
Please
the
think twice
nostalgia
about
call.
using this as your desktop environment, even if it triggers your nostalgia.
yeah,
So
yeah.
how is
Oh,
GNU Step
oh,
coming? Look,
on
there it's
on on
still there.
more FreeBSD stuff, I
Yes.
am running XRDP. Yeah,
Yes.
XRDP.
Yes.
The
Yes, please.
RDP server for X. Not in a jail though, just on a
No, it's
Beehive
kind of
virtual
useful.
machine. I mean, because when you're doing like, GNU step window maker development, you want to see
Mm-hmm.
if you can see if it compiled, but you want to see if it's running. And I'm surprised on how easy it is to get these things running, right? Like pkg install, XRDP, you set one file to be an executable, and then you just enable a service and start a service, right?
And you
Then
need
you can
it's
connect
like
easily.
Tiger VNC or something for the
Well,
actual virtual contraption. Okay.
I'm using the microslop remote desktop app that they have on the
Microsoft.
Mac store. I think they changed it lately to,
No, I was thinking, I thought you need a dependency to do the virtual frame buffer was handled by Tiger VNC or somebody. But no, that's
No, Tiger
oh,
VNC is a
no,
VNC client.
it's a VNC
you're right.
one.
One of them had a server client and you
Yeah.
needed one for the other. No worries. That's awesome.
Tight. You mean tight, not tiger. Tight VNC and
That
tight VNC server. Yes.
that sounds right.
And
Yes,
not this
okay.
case. I'm just doing XRDP as a
That's
server.
cool.
And
Yeah,
then the Microsoft Windows app or whatever that they have on the Mac store. I mean, I tried using X3RDP. Oh my God, it has more command line arguments than curl. So I'm like, no, thank you.
Oh,
Um,
really? So not using X3RDP.
I'm not using X3RDP.
Okay.
Also, it means I would need to run Xquartz on my Mac, and I wanted
Oh,
something more native.
that's cool.
So X3RDP and then the Microsoft typical whatever that they
Yeah,
have on the Mac
yeah.
App Store is fine.
Yes.
Yeah, if I were on another Unix system, then I would use X3RDP for sure. Although there are good wrappers for X3RDP. There's one I discovered yesterday called Remina. Yeah,
Yeah,
Remina.
Ramin is a
Yes.
client, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's basically an X3RDP
Yep.
wrapper, just so you wouldn't need to remember all of that. And another one that my friend recommended, and I really like that, is called Apache Guacamole,
Ah, yes, yes.
which is a web version of that. So like
Mm-hmm.
it might be a good solution for a PAM system, a pluggable authentication model. So where you would do all of the access controls on Guacamole, and then like, okay, Michael can access this and Antronic can access that. So it's a good one. I like
Yeah,
that too.
I think
Very nice for development.
Andrew from Prominic was perhaps looking at that and quite
Mhm.
positive a few months ago.
Yeah.
Alrighty then.
I do have a question
Yes,
if we're not
please.
if we're done.
No, it's open floor. Let's just get some more voices in there. Go ahead, Antranig. What's your question?
Right. So the question that I'm having is, let's see where that went. In jails, we can specify things like mount.devfs and mount. etc. Or we can pass a fstab file if we want to. And I think there's an argument for that. I want to say, actually, let me not say, let me just have a look at it. Man jail fstab. Yeah, it is mount.fstab. And then you would pass it fstab file, format file containing file system to mount before creating the jail. I like that. What was I going to ask about this? Right. For those who are doing enemy of the state DCH style jails, and Jan, I think you are doing that. Do you have any kind of a template that people can use? What I mean is, let's say I have a bit of a complicated jail that needs Linux FS and or like proc FS or other things or even null FS, because in our case we have jails which mount things which inside of it a lot of NFS stuff are mounted from, let's say, the storage server, right? So does anyone know, like, is it just a regular FS file? What's the situation there? Is anyone using that on production? Are there any gotchas?
Yeah, there are.
Okay, good. That's what I
So
want to
you
know.
have, first of all, if you're actually doing enemy of the state stuff, you should minimize the attack surface you mount into your jails and the devices you expose and so on, instead of lighting up the Christmas tree for whoever is actually, if you have real enemies, right? Don't open the cornucopia for them. Um, but the other thing is if you need, for example, procfs or whatever in a jail, um, you have two options. Either you can put the mounting configuration directly inside the jail.conf, or you can have jail.conf point at a FS tab. The problem is, in both cases, what happens is that the jail command passes the fstab formatted mounting configuration and mounts it unconditionally every time the jail is started, which for most file systems will fail if the jail is not completely unmounted, which means if you have some failure to start in your jail or it just exits on its own because the last process dies, um, it will not be torn down, and then you're left with mount points you have to clean up by hand. I have some trivial, or not completely trivial, but some fairly simple shell scripts I shared through the minutes of exactly this call a year or so ago, which will unmount everything on top of the jail root directory every time the jail is started, and then mount the CFS file systems, and then mount the other ones by piping an FS stub stored in a jail.conf variable, just a multi-line string, not a multi-valued variable. And you can pipe that into the mount command as a here doc from an exec.prepare. And that works really well for me. You can have multiple exec.prepare if you want to break it up so that the output in a failure case is not a kilometer of code you wanted to run, which rounds out the error message. Another neat trick you can do is just export the shell variables you need, or bind the jail.conf variables to shell variables and then source in a source file, which results in vastly better error messages because you get like 5 lines of jail.conf. And the other nice thing about this, now that jail.conf has .include support, including with wildcards, you can write snippets and include them by symlinking them in a directory. So you just include star.conf from the directory, and if you want something, you symlink it in. Um, a bit like some Linux distributions used to handle stuff like sites active for Apache. So you have all your defined site, uh, and then you subname the ones you want to currently host into the sites.active directory.
Does that answer your question, Antranig?
I was going to say that, yes, that does explain a lot.
Cool.
I'm just adding that feature into Jailer, and I wanted to make sure that I'm on the right track.
Amen.
So what I currently do on my clean jail systems is I have a very short etcjail.conf, which basically only includes user local etcjail.conf if it exists, and then etcjail.d. And yeah, you can make it a bit more flexible by including any file ending in .conf in the jail configuration directory, as well as any file named jail.conf within a subdirectory or a subdirectory ending in .d. And then you can have something like a jail.conf in a subdirectory, which would oftentimes for me just open a jail block with a fixed name, which includes a jail.conf, which is kind of the inner part of a jail block so that you get reusability. Did we just lose Antronik?
We just lost
Yeah, we did.
Antranig. You answered it and he ran off to go implement that. I'll have
Yeah,
to jump off. See you tomorrow. Thank you, Jan, the rest of
yeah.
you. Great. Katya, Daniel, Mark, what you got, if anything?
Nothing too jaily over here.
Nothing too jaily. Cool. Are you
No, I
under
don't.
snow? Go ahead, Mark. Sorry to interrupt. I was asking a weather question, but
Oh no, I don't have anything to add today.
cool. Well,
Same for me.
gang, that's it. I say we call it good, and some might meet tomorrow for ZFS.
Awesome. Thanks again, Michael.
Of course.
Thanks so
Philip, would
much.
you like the honors? Official honors?
Oh, sure. Like and subscribe.
Thank you. Have a great week. Take care.
Thank you.